Each year, Jesus' parents went to Jerusalem for the feast of Passover, and when he was 12 years old, they went up according to festival custom. After they had completed its days as they were returning, the boy Jesus remained behind in Jerusalem, but his parents did not know it. Thinking that he was in the caravan, they journeyed for a day and looked for him among their relatives and acquaintances. But not finding him, they returned to Jerusalem to look for him. After 3 days, they found him in the temple, sitting in the midst of the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. And all who heard him were astounded at his understanding and his answers. When his parents saw him, they were astonished. And his mother said to him, "Son, why have you done this to us? Your father and I have been looking for you with great anxiety." And he said to them, "Why were you looking for me? Did you not know that I must be in my father's house?" They did not understand what he said to them. He went down with them and came to Nazareth and was obedient to them. And his mother kept all these things in her heart. And Jesus advanced in wisdom and age and favor before God and man. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
This is my sixth Mass in the last 24 hours, so forgive me for being brief. I don't really want to hear myself talk anymore. But this weekend, we celebrate the feast day of the Holy Family. The first Sunday of Advent is the feast day of the Holy Family of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. And that might be one of my favorite parts about the whole Christmas story, is that God became part of a human family. And as a result, the everyday circumstances that family life gives us, those things become occasions of God's actions. They become occasions of divine revelation and our own salvation. Jesus being born into a family shows us that God wants to meet us. He wants to become like us and love us right where we are in the context of the family. Jesus being born into a family makes all of the normal things that families do together actually incredible things. Everything that God touches is holy. If you think back to the Gospels, the people who wanted to be healed, they knew that all they had to do was touch the hem of Jesus' garment. So on Christmas, God being born into a family, well, God touches this world and he changes what it means to live in this world, especially to live in the context of a family. Because God himself breathed the air that we breathe. He himself drank the water, the same water that we drink. The ground that we walk on is holy because God himself has blessed this earth with his presence. God looked with the same human eyes that we do at the stars we see at night. God laughed, and so laughter was made holy. God cried, and so tears were made holy. God shared meals with his family, and in so doing, he made the dinner table holy. God had a home in a small town in a far-off corner of the Roman Empire, probably not too much different than the one that we live in. God himself played in the streets with his neighborhood friends. He heard stories told to him by his parents. He climbed trees. He skinned knees. He worked by the sweat of his brow. And so, in doing so, our stories and our communities and our recreation and our frailty and our labor, all of those things were made holy because God did them. In every story that Jesus tells, it's obvious that he knew his home well and that he loved the world around him. He did everything that you and I do on a daily basis, and in doing so, he makes all of those things holy because God did them. And it makes all of those things amazing. It transforms even the very ordinary, everyday things that we do into something special, into extraordinary things. And that includes the difficult things like suffering. Jesus certainly did that. Just look at Good Friday and see how he suffered for us. He even died. He went through everything that we fear. Even the thing that we fear is death. By becoming human, God brings heaven down to earth. And he shows us the things that we do are the things that God himself has done. And in that we can relate to God amazingly. We can talk to him because he's done all these things himself. He's truly experienced what it is to be a human. And that transforms even our suffering into something that is no longer useless, something that has value, because it's something that God himself did. And sort of what's best about all of this is looking at it from sort of a faraway point of view, just to see all of the scriptures in context. God's life here on earth was not perfect, which means that even when things don't go so perfectly for us, God is still there. If you attended Mass last evening, you probably heard a very long gospel reading that included St. Matthew's account of the genealogy of Jesus. And it has all these crazy names that are meant to just make priests sweat a little bit on Christmas Eve to have to read all of them. But it shows us that Jesus came from a real human family. We generally tend to think of just Jesus, Mary, and Joseph as members of the Holy Family. But all you have to do is just a little bit of reading of the Old Testament to look through some of the names in that genealogy of Jesus, and you'll realize that in that list that St. Matthew gives us, there are murderers, there are pagans, there are adulterers, there are liars, there are cheaters, there are prostitutes, there are thieves. That's the wider context of the family that Jesus came from. And he wasn't ashamed of it, which means that he isn't ashamed of where you or I come from, the background that we come from. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It doesn't matter how sinful your past is, or how broken your family might be, or how heavy the crosses you carry. Jesus doesn't care whether or not you're perfect. He cares so much about you that he'll do anything to love you. In my family, to put ourselves in the mindset and in the shoes of the Holy Family on that first Christmas, we celebrated Christmas in a very special way. Each of us, growing up, each of the 9 days leading up to Christmas Eve being the 9th of those days, we would pray a novena, which is a prayer that you pray every day for 9 days. And you stretch it out over that 9-day period. And during the 9 days leading up to Christmas, each member of our family would prepare a place in their bedroom or a corner of the house for Mary and Joseph to stay for the night, in remembrance of the fact that they didn't have a place to stay. And so it worked out pretty well, because there's 9 of us all together. I'm the oldest of 5 boys and 2 girls, plus mom and dad. And we would prepare a place for the statues from our family nativity scene to spend each of the nights leading up to Christmas Eve. And the shelters that we prepared for Mary and Joseph ranged from, just a simple shoebox diorama with some hay in the corner of my sister's bedroom, to a setup that involved, ornaments and Christmas lights and all kinds of extravagant decorations. But finally, on the last day of that novena, after we would attend Christmas Eve Mass, we would go throughout the house with all the figurines from the nativity scene, all the cows and the shepherds and the angels and the sheep, and mom and dad got Mary and Joseph, and my youngest sibling, Mary, got baby Jesus, and I always end up with a sheep or a shepherd or something that was less exciting. But we would take the figurines and we would place them close to our Christmas tree, and then Dad would lead us in prayers, and then we would all sing together Joy to the World and invite the Holy Family into our home and into our hearts. And only then, after we invited the Holy Family into our home, did we begin to open our gifts. Each one of us got one gift from Mom and Dad and another gift from one of our siblings that was drawn at random at the beginning of Advent. And it would begin with the youngest. Mary would give her gifts, and then all the way up to the oldest, Mom and Dad finally giving us all of our gifts. And it was only after recognizing the greatest gift of all, then realizing that no present, no gift we could ever receive from anyone else could measure up to God giving us his only Son. And that put all these things into perspective. It put Christmas into perspective for us very, very clearly as to what its true meaning is. That it is about a mom and a dad and their baby son, and how they had nothing when he was born. If you travel to Bethlehem and go to the church of the Nativity, it's the oldest church in all of the entire world, the oldest Christian church. It was built in the year 325 by Emperor Constantine of the Roman Empire, the first Christian Roman emperor. And it's built over the top of the actual place where Jesus was born. And you'll find that the entrance into this large church, it's much larger than this church. It's not huge by any means, but it is a bigger church. And you'll find out that the entrance to this church is this tiny little door that's only about 4.5 feet tall. and you have to duck down to get into the church. And the reason why the door was so short was probably to provide the church with some kind of protection from attack during the Crusades, so that soldiers and kings and caliphs couldn't enter into the church on horseback. But for me, it served, when I went to the Holy Land, it served another purpose rather than just that historical one, but another purpose of having to bend down to enter into the place where Jesus was born. It's a spiritual truth, if you will, that if we want to find the God who appeared to us as a child, who appeared as a member of the Holy Family, we must get down on our knees, and we must humble ourselves as he did. That's why we celebrate Christmas, because God is showing us the extent of his love by giving us his Son in such a meek and humble way. Whether you and your family are in a good place or a bad place, whether you are a saint or a sinner, he wants you to get to know him, and he wants a relationship with you. And he proves it to us as he comes to us as a child, coming to us as a member of a family.